Hello and welcome, everyone. You're in for a real treat today. Nick's going to talk about Salt Code, a real cool innovation that we've added to the Salt agentic security platform, especially as it relates to how your people are building code with AI assisted code development. Super exciting topic today. So enjoy this with Nick. There's just a little bit of housekeeping. If you look on somewhere on your screen, it probably has a chat. Some of you guys are already using that. You can add questions in there. We'll monitor it. And also throughout it, you'll hear me mention, we're giving this a free version of this today for everybody that's in the webinar. And I'll tell you what the link is now, so you could go try it right now if you wanted. Hopefully as you go through this with Nick, you'll be even more inspired. But if you just go to getsaltcode.com, you'll see all you need to do. It's basically your email address, and then you'll be sent a token and you're off to the races. So it's getsaltcode.com. Okay, with that, let me turn it over to our celebrity speaker today, VP of Product Strategy, Nick Rago.
All right, thank you, Michael, and welcome everybody. Like Michael had said, you'll have access to, you see the URL that Danielle just put in the chat. Also go to getsaltcode.com. Both of those actually work. I'm going to usher you through the process as we go through the webinar as well, to show you what you have to do on the site to actually get signed up. But we'll kind of go over first a little bit of primer of what Salt Code is and what it does, and why we created it. One of the biggest drivers of this is AI is creating one of the fastest growing attack surfaces that we've ever seen. If you think about what's happening right now, it's the attack surface that's being created in the world right now it's expanding faster than what we saw in the Web 2.0 innovations, mobile app innovations, cloud digital transformations. All of that created a giant, enormous attack surface that really dwarfs in comparison to what we're seeing right now. AI is accelerating that even further because machines are now creating all of the software that we're going to be consuming. And we're moving from human scale connectivity really to machine scale connectivity. And I always tell people when we take a look at sort of this agentic space and the AI coding assistants and what we're doing right now, that we think we're deploying with AI and we're building AI systems and agentic systems. We're actually deploying thousands of new machine-to-machine connections and a bigger, wider attack surface in all of these services and software and applications that were created. So one of the other big problems that we're seeing right now is that if AI is generating code, waiting for runtime is already too late. We need to make sure we're not generating new security problems at machine speed. And if we kind of look at what we've done and what we have right now, the old way is not going to scale if we kind of keep going on all the processes and systems and pipelines that we've already built today. We have more code than ever because of these coding assistants. There's less time to review, and we have to accept that there's going to be more risk in production, right? We're already only doing a fraction of the code that we're doing manually today. Actually, is going through all of the formal test cycles. So now we're just throwing more and more into these pipelines and really hoping for the best. The short of it is that coding assistants are really good on functionality today. They are not good at all from an application security standpoint. And there's a lot of numbers that back this up. I'm hoping a lot of you have actually used all the major coding assistants that are out there and can attest to this. But if you are a person like me that actually needs metrics and numbers, we can kind of look at what's happening right now. I think the big problem is the code does work. And because it works and because it's functional, I'm a developer by trade. I see that functionally it works. I move on to the next task. If we take a look at actually what's happening is, yes, the code is functional that's being created by these coding assistants, but what's the quality of the code from a security standpoint? Veracode has been studying this for years. They've been doing a bunch of research regarding security related to Gen AI code. They just came out with a new study that was done in February, then it was updated over the summer as well. They evaluated over 150 large language models across different vendors, programming languages, and looked at a whole bunch of different vulnerability types. What they found was pretty interesting. With the AI code generation, all of these LLMs are 99, it's actually higher than this, it's 99.9% syntactically correct, right? So what that basically means is from a syntax standpoint, coding agents are pretty good. They're getting everything right, and functionally the code is working as it is intended to. But also in that same study, what they found is that of all that code, if we take a look at security tasks, so if you think of an application that you build, there's a bunch of security tasks or prompts that you may give a coding agent. 44% of them have some security flaw associated with it. That's a huge number if you think about all of the things that you ask your coding agent to do when you're in the process of sort of building a new microservice or building a new application. Think about all of the different coding tasks that go into a new web service or an MCP tool or an application that you're creating. The other interesting thing with these numbers is that from February of this year, Veracode saw that syntax correctness jumped from around 94% to 99.9%, but security stayed exactly flat. So while the coding agents got much better at writing functional code and making code that was syntax-wise correct, from a security standpoint, nothing really changed. It followed the same exact trajectory. And there's a lot of academia studies that are coming right now about the coding agents and what they're capable of. There was a couple good ones. It's on the slide here. After this, if you're interested, I can drop links, or we can send out after links to all of these reports. But there was another really good report that was done recently that evaluated over 200 actual publicly deployed vibe-coded applications. And the interesting metric here was that over 90% of them had at least one security vulnerability associated with it. And then when you jumped into that even more so, the mean in terms of the number of vulnerabilities were about 7 vulnerabilities per application, and almost 80%, about 77% of the vulnerabilities were considered critical or high vulnerabilities from a security standpoint. So those numbers are pretty daunting, right? Functionally, the coding agents work, but from a security perspective, if I'm building, if I'm running a project, there's a 90% chance that there's some major security vulnerability or some type of software vulnerability associated with it. And we've always talked about, especially on the application security side, this notion of this shift left dream. If I could just take what's in the application security world, the engineers and the directors' minds, and I can put that into the minds of the developers and their fingertips, we wouldn't have any problems. But unfortunately, that's not how the world works. And so what we did to get as close as possible, we built pipelines and we jammed tools into the pipelines. And then we had this relentless barrage of noise and constant feedback loops. And we've created, over the last decade to 2 decades, this abrasive coexistence between developers and security. So when we kind of took a look at the world, we said, well, what if the coding assistant was already a security expert? Right? What if all of those security policies that come out of the security governance committee meetings are just, the Jedi mind trick of getting those policies and putting it inside the mind of the developer, which is now the mind of the context window of the coding agent that the developer uses. What if we could do that? And what if we could do something that, a scenario where, let's say you see Gemini CLI on the screen here, we're saying, hey, you know what? Design me a user API, a delete user API for this new MCP tool that I'm creating. And I want the user ID and the auth token and a query string. I need to get this done because I need to work on my next microservice that I'm asked to be developed. What if the coding agent had the ability to understand already, okay, I'm going to do this for you. I'm going to look at what what our security policies are. And you know what you're asking me to do has a lot of security problems or flaws associated with it. What you're asking me to do could mean that this tool is susceptible to Ebola. We could be logging authentication strings and user IDs inside logging systems. You didn't ask me to do anything around tool input or validation regarding this MCP tool. So instead, I'm going to do what you're going to ask me to do. I'm going to functionally build it, but I'm going to make sure that everything that we're doing already complies with the corporate security policies or the best practices or the regulatory requirements that we all should be following from a coding standpoint. Right? I'm taking the onus off of the pipeline and application security and SAST and DAST, and I'm putting it, right into the coding agent itself when it's greenfielding and building code from prompt to screen. That is what we looked at, and we said, can we help organizations and can we help developers and can we help AppSec and DevSecOps take advantage of something like this? And then one of the big payoffs for a developer here would be if we could do this, is think about all of the less feedback that's coming from the pipeline. If for me, from a developer standpoint, if I'm getting 60, 70% less feedback from the pipeline every time I write code or checking code, That's gold to me. Like, can we do that? And so what we did is we came up with Salt Code. And the purpose of Salt Code is exactly this, to secure code with every prompt. It basically is an MCP interface to your coding assistant that gives it a lot of coding expertise and security expertise around a whole bunch of different topics: the OWASP top 10s, MCP security, LLM security, best practices from a service API, MCP tool documentation standpoint. All of that embedded into the coding agent. And the best thing is you don't change anything you're doing. Nothing changes. This does not delay anything. This does not shim into prompts. It is embedded into the coding agents that you already use and takes quite literally seconds to set up. Now, from a coding agent standpoint, what's supported? All of the major coding agents that are supported, and not only the coding agents that you're using today, such as Claude Code, Cursor, VS Code with Copilot, AWS Kiro. It supports all of the CLI coding agents. So anything that you maybe have running in your pipeline or running from a command line, think of Gemini CLI, Grok, Codex, the Copilot CLI. Supports all the open source coding agents as well, and also supports a lot of design tools that are out there. Think of the Postmans of the world that have embedded agents inside them now, or the Kong Insomnia, where you're designing a new MCP or 808 interface, or microservice or API. These technologies all can be embedded and actually integrate with Salt Code as well as low code, no code application builders as well. And I'm thinking of companies or applications like Lovable, for example, all support Salt Code as well.
And I'm just going to interrupt Nick for a second as he's going on this. Just a reminder, if you have questions, you can put them in the Q&A. We'll look at those, or the chat if you want to do it there. Either place, we'll look at them. But also, you can get what Nick just talked about, Salt Code. It's totally free, super easy. It takes less than 5 minutes to install. In fact, probably a minute or two. It's super, super easy. Just go to getsaltcode.com.
All right. Thanks, Michael.
Yeah.
So what are you actually getting this? When you connect your coding assistant to Salt Code, what is the Jedi mind trick that's actually happening? What's the security expertise that's getting absorbed by the coding agent? 4 categories, 4 packs, we call them, about 40 different policies that you get, all free. One is around API security top 10. Again, a lot of focus around API security, because if you think about all of the different transformative times in technology that I mentioned before, Web 2.0, mobile, digital cloud transformation, and this new AI and agentic wave that we're going through right now, the foundational piece to every one of those technical innovations has always been API connectivity. That makes these innovations work and become a reality. So again, API security top 10, it's foundational to everything that you're doing when you're building your applications today. We happen to be the pioneers of API security. So you have 10 plus years of research that is actually being lifted from Salt to your coding agent while you code. MCP security top 10, LLM security top 10, and as I mentioned before, this whole notion of documentation compliance. And this is important for blueprinting, right? We always say that we want to blueprint things before we develop them. That's the golden rule. The problem is we never have time to do it, and the blueprints are always bad. The great thing with coding agent technologies and these context windows that we use now as developers or architects is that we do now have time to blueprint it. We can see the schematics of what something we're about to build looks like, and we have the ability to do it and blueprint it in a way that we know is going to be security compliant before we move to the next step, which is actually write code and develop. As I mentioned before, one of the biggest things here with this particular technology is we wanted to make sure that you do not change what you're doing. Keep doing what you normally do, only now the code that's being developed or the designs that you create will be more secure out of the gate, right? Again, with the goal of, I don't want to hear from security. I don't want that feedback landing on my lap. I want to build it and move on. And so this really, really is a very good technology to help do that with really no abrasiveness or friction to get the benefits of it. Another big thing that's important is I know I focused just because of where I came from a development standpoint, all of the benefits there, but there's also a lot of benefits from a DevSecOps standpoint and from an AppSec standpoint. So from a DevSecOps standpoint, think of now the ability to say, okay, as a first wave, My developers are using Salt Code. So, there is a very high percentage chance that the code is going to have no vulnerabilities. But I want to validate everything, especially even things on existing code when there's a new PR. From a CLI perspective, let's say we're using Gemini CLI, or if we're using Claude Code CLI, DevSecOps can actually leverage this technology as well, because all of those CLIs support MCP configurations, so that every PR that's pulled and every new branch that's created in a repository, Salt Code could work with those coding agents to do verifications to make sure that the security policies are being followed. From an AppSec standpoint, we talked about this already. The idea of taking the application security, either your corporate security policies, or even if you're independent and you're a consultant and you're working on a project, take the best of the world, all of the industry best practices from a security standpoint. Your reputation is everything. We want to make sure we're writing code that doesn't have vulnerabilities in it. So take all of the best of AppSec and make sure that the coding agents know about all of those policies and are trained on them. There's one other advantage here from an application security standpoint, and that is, especially in the enterprise world today, we are, of course, we're using coding agents from a developer and architecture standpoint, but we're also using coding agents from a vibe coding standpoint, right? The non-developers who are now using low code, no codes, or the Claudes of the world, or the Cursors of the world, to write applications that they're deploying in their production environment, outside of the normal SDLC pipes. What do we do for that? Well, we can embrace, it's happening whether we like it or not, and we can embrace it by just telling those people that are out there that are vibe coding, here's Salt Code, please use it. The other great thing that's happening right now is if you're in an enterprise and you are using technologies like the enterprise versions of Cursor or Claude Code, most of the platforms now have the ability to actually push MCP configurations to the coding agents or the IDEs, so that, again, you can tell the vibe coders in your organization, here you go, you can use Cursor, and then you have a sense of confidence that it is already cooked, already connected to Salt Code. So anything that they do, I can be assured it's going to be within the realm of security best practices. So that is a lot of the benefit that goes beyond the developer desktop to DevSecOps and application security. Before I get into the demo here, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that there is an enterprise version of this available. It's part of the larger Salt agentic security platform. And if you're, work for the CISO organization, application security, DevSecOps, or engineering organizations in your company, a couple of big benefits that you get from, moving from sort of the free version to the full Salt agentic security platform is 140 plus policies, and the policy engine out of the gate is the most expansive API MCP agentic security policy hub right now in the industry. All the regulatory requirements are included in it, industry best practices. It also gives you the ability to bring your own policy. So any custom policies that your organization may have. So I'll give you an example of a custom policy is we came out of the governance committee meeting and we decided as a company that all of our MCP development is only going to be done on fast MCP and on this particular version of fast MCP. That is a custom policy you can put into Salt Code. And then the coding agents know if they see someone building MCP tooling or MCP servers that, wait a second, we have to build this with fast MCP libraries, these particular libraries, and you're off and running. So all custom policies, unlimited custom policies are supported. Salt Code, the version that you have access today is token-based authentication. The enterprise version supports OAuth for your end users, in addition to like service accounts and bearer tokens. And the last piece is you do get usage metrics with the enterprise version as well. There's a console. You can actually see who the biggest coding agent users are, what are the policies that are being referenced. And we have a whole bunch of new features that are coming out that will give you a lot of feedback from the coding agents themselves inside the Salt Enterprise dashboard. So really excited about what we have right now and what we're going to be building over the next quarter plus from a platform perspective. So what I wanted to do next was show you what this...
While Nick's getting ready to go into the demo, I'm just going to remind everyone again, please go try it. Like, it's super easy. It's just your name, and your email, so that we can email you the token that Nick talked about. Getsaltcode.com. You get it running, super easy to install, and you're up and running and producing policy compliant code, right out of the gate. So please go use that, getsaltcode.com.
So here's where getsaltcode.com will take you. This is the website that you get dropped off in. Again, a lot of what we just talked about today is sort of resonant on this site from an information standpoint, but it's as simple as putting your name, email address in. Click, you'll get an email which will validate you and essentially take you to a page that looks like this. And we'll walk you through the coding assistants that you want to configure, whether they be IDEs like Cursor, VS Code, Kiro, whether it be low code, no code application builders like Lovable, or whether it be a lot of the CLIs that you mentioned here, whether it be Grok, Copilot, Gemini, Claude Code, are all supported. What I'll do is I will take you, I'll take you through sort of a Cursor configuration and a VS Code quickly, just to kind of show you what it looks like in those environments. Once you've configured it, then the system will give you access to really sort of a getting started. Here's some different prompts that you can try on your own to test out, the validity of Salt Code. We also have a GitHub repo where you can actually send in feedback and questions all through here as well. All right, but now let's go back to the configuration. If I'm in the Cursor configuration here, a couple things you can do with inside Cursor. One is you could go inside Cursor, go to settings, and you can paste in the configuration for the Salt Code MCP itself. Or Cursor and both Cursor and VS Code have click installations or hotlink installations where you can actually click. It will open up Cursor and configure the MCP for you. So if I click here, and then let me just switch over to Cursor. All right. So you can see here, click Cursor, your configuration will show up, your Salt Code configuration will be live inside Cursor. The only thing you need to do once you click that link is you'll see an activation that you just have to slide over on the right-hand side, a toggle just to turn it on. Once it's turned on, you'll see the tools and the prompt configuration that gets pushed down to Cursor or whatever your coding agent IDE is. You'll see policies related to the categories of policies. You'll see tools related to the categories of policies. The policies pulls themselves, that pulls all of the policies and the security knowledge and expertise into the context window of the coding agent as you're using it. And then down below, you'll also see a workflow. This is a prompt workflow that's associated with it. This is an important part of the Salt Code because it tells the coding agent, regardless of what LLM that you're using, how to use Salt Code and when to invoke it. So we want this to be proactive. We want Salt Code to be able to kick off every time that you ask it something, to prompt it to code or build something that's in sort of the purview of what Salt Code looks for. Again, that's anything related to sort of that agentic stack, APIs, MCPs, LLM tooling, agent configuration, all of that lights up Salt Code when you're using your coding agent. Okay, so next here, what we'll do is we'll take a look at the repository that I was working on here. It's really just an Express API repository. And if I go in the upper right-hand corner here and I start to write something like, hey, just from an education standpoint, I want to know what security policies are enabled in Cursor right now. You can see Cursor actually connects to Salt Code, MCP interface, and then you can see all of the security knowledge and expertise that Cursor now has inside of its context window. So all of this security expertise across all of these different categories, whether it be the OWASP API security top 10, MCP top 10, LLM top 10, documentation specification, blueprinting, all of that is now inside the context window when you work inside your repository. So again, really, really a big drastic difference on sort of what the default LLM that you're using in Cursor is going to provide you with. Now,
I could add one thing on that, Nick, is one, Nick just did that to show you. You don't have to do that. It's already there. Nick just like typed that in to say, hey, what is available if you're interested, but it's already there. You didn't have to do that. And those, you saw that's grouped like into these 4 categories. That's what Nick was talking about earlier, which we have these, as this free version, you've got 40 of the most common policies. They're in these 4 10 packs, we'll call them. But that's where they came from. So the thing that he mentioned earlier, this is like a little bit more detail or specificity on them, and it shows, what the severity level is and all that. But they're all there. And you don't have to do anything and automatically deployed.
I always tell people to just run that check, just to give you sort of the peace of mind to knowing that all of that coding expertise, that security expertise, is in the context window of the coding agent. So it's a good validation test. Now, if you direct your attention to the lower right hand of the screen here, you're going to see I just put in a prompt that says, hey, can you design me a new registry admin API that's blueprinted in Swagger OAS? And again, let's put the authentication via of the user in a query string. And so we'll go ahead and submit that. Okay. And I asked it to design me that, and I just kind of want to draw your attention to the center of the screen here, where now Cursor is saying, I can't safely design you that particular API because it authenticates a user in a query string, and that pattern conflicts with security best practices and policies, and it makes you susceptible to X, Y, Z. Instead, let's do this. So what it's instead built is a compliant specification or blueprint of this microservice or API. And then down below is asking you, hey, if you're cool with this, let's talk about the authentication mechanism that will be best from a security compliance standpoint, make sure there's no vulnerabilities associated with what we're trying to build right here. So this is an example of, like Michael was saying, like sort of proactive security. Now the coding agent already knows what are the best practices from a security standpoint. If you had formally asked, like, so this is like Cursor now comes with the default Grok coding LLM inside of it. If you had formally asked Cursor to build this for you, it would have built you this blueprint, and the next stage would have been, okay, now let's write the code associated with it, and then let's push it out. But again, right out of the gate, it's compliant from a security standpoint. There will be no vulnerability associated with it. And whether you're sort of independent developer, or if you're pushing this into an SDLC pipeline, you'll have good confidence that you're not going to get any blowback or feedback from the pipeline based on what you just built.
And if you had written that request and it was a compliant request and not how you wrote it, it would have just written it. It wouldn't have given you anything that said, oh, hey, this is violating this. And it would have just written it and said, yep, here you go.
Now I'll show you the other side of this as well. The configuration for VS Code is very similar. Again, there's you can kind of paste the configuration inside VS Code, or there's again another hot configure link for VS Code. You click, it automatically sets up, will set up the MCP configuration for you. You can see that right here. There's the salt MCP config inside VS Code. Again, that's just a result of me clicking the link. Same repo as I was working on before, this Express user API. But what I'm doing now is I'm going to ask, again, if you kind of put your focus on the lower right of the screen, do any of the routes in this repo violate, and I have the word SALT critical policies here, but you could have just said security policies, or are there any vulnerabilities associated with this? And then what VS Code does when I submit this is it checks, it's kind of pulling all of the policies. And then right here, you can see it says, I found the controls. And then it's confirmed that there are policy gaps associated with it. So I'll kind of just let this work itself out here. And then if we take a look at what we're seeing on the screen, one is it said, hey, I found you have, what's the OWASP API 2 violations in particular sections of this repository. It actually will show you the lines of code and the files itself. I can see where there are bolas associated with this, the code in this, where in the repository. and then BFLAs associated with the code as well. So again, a lot of the OWASP API top 10, the major ones here, we're seeing vulnerabilities associated with it. And then if you click on any of the links here, it'll actually show you in VS Code exactly where the non-compliance is. And so the next thing that you'll have the ability to do here is you would have the ability to say, you know what, let's PR this and fix this, or let's just fix the code right now. Let's branch it and we'll fix this code and we'll get rid of all of these vulnerabilities inside of it. So again, this is an example of more of a reactive, where we have a policy, where we have a repository that's already in place or code that's already in place, and I want to do a security review of it. Now I'm showing you this inside of the IDE. This also works with all of the CLIs, right? So think of this from a headless standpoint. So everything I just showed you, this is something that the Copilot coding agent CLI could do. This is something that Claude Code, as part of your as part of your PR Git action process, could do for you automatically as code comes in. Or you could tell these coding agents retroactively, take a look at these security policies from Salt Code. Let me know if what I already have in production or what I'm about to release in production as a sanity check. Is there anything that I should be concerned about here? So again, it is the major purpose of this is to put all of the security knowledge and expertise inside the context windows of these coding agents, regardless of where they live inside your IDE, inside the tools that you use, or inside the pipelines and the CLI tools and the pipelines that you already have, and make sure that again that you're delivering secure code right out of the gate. So what I'll stop that, and I will go back to our.
While Nick's flipping over, I'll just remind again, I'll be the squeaky wheel on this. Go try it. Super easy. Get saltcode.com. You'll be up and running in less than 2 minutes probably.
Yep. And that's that. And like I said, once you're here and you go through the process that I showed you of getting up and running with Salt Code, I do recommend that you kind of just run through a couple of the test prompts here. Just so, again, first one is just to make sure that it's connected and working okay. And then, the couple of examples that I just gave you here today to run. So I'm really interested to get your feedback. We've done a lot of validation testing, compared it to a lot of other prompt injection, the prompt shim tools that are out there to try to get into the coding agents. We've massaged, the MCP protocol a bit here to get this to work the way that we want with all of the major coding agents. So we would really love to hear your feedback on this. And as I mentioned before, the feedback for us comes in the form of GitHub. So let me just share that to you one more time. So again, from the Salt Code page, you'll have a link to GitHub. The GitHub repo is here. And again, under issues here, if there's any feedback or questions or even recommendations, we'd love to hear from you. Right now, we are in the process of building out all of the integration, direct integrations with all the major coding agents and IDEs that are out there inside their marketplaces, for example. So today you go to the Salt Code, Get Salt Code site to do the configuration. You'll be able to actually just go into the marketplace of any one of these coding agents and do the installation directly from there.
Cool. So we intentionally built this so that you guys would have time to go get saltcode.com. So there's time left. There was an hour blocked out. A lot of the questions we answered, but there was one, I just want to reiterate what Nick said. I'm going to paraphrase it, is like, does this work on existing code or only new code? And the answer is both, as Nick showed. If you're writing it from scratch, it's going to come out like, I'll use the phrase, kind of compliant by default, because it's already using all of your policies to write the code. But if you have code and you want to just scan it and say, anything wrong with this? It'll go through and you'll get a version of what Nick showed on your screen. But you can use it for both, existing code or new code.
There was another one, Michael, from someone asking in the question pane here, does this add any overhead or latency to the coding agent itself? And the answer there is no. When you do the initial MCP configuration and the initialization that happens, the coding agent will bring down the policies into its context window. So while you're coding, inside the context window, the agent already knows, the coding agent already knows what the policies it should be are. So again, it's sort of inherently giving all the security, the security expertise to the coding agent when you're inside of a coding session. So you should not notice any meaningful delay that's going to slow you down.
Not at all. And it really is free. We're not going to hound you. This is meant to just have you guys build better, more compliant code. So there's no follow-up. There's no salesman that's going to call you or send you emails. It's free. So again, we did this intentionally to give you, we block out an hour, but we're at 40 minutes. Take this time now. Go try it. See how it works. Should be really easy. You're welcome to send us anything if you have questions, comments, you're having trouble with it. But we designed it to really be super simple, that you can just get it up and running in no time and using it. So again, go to getsaltcode.com. Okay, I'm going to wrap us up. Thank you all. We're really excited about this. Hopefully you are too. It's meant to be frictionless, super easy, and hopefully you see the value out of it. So any questions, you can get back to us. We'll also send a recording of this out to everyone so that you have it to refer back to if you want. But thank you for taking the time with us today. Nick, thank you as always. Always super interesting as you talk about the products we have and the solutions we have. And everyone have a good rest of your week. Thank you.
Take care, everyone.